Hey everyone, just want to take a moment and show you exactly where my motion has led me in the last couple days. Just want you to look around. I find it actually pretty perfect. Today is foggy and there's a mist just shrouding the entire environment of where I'm at. Man, it's so beautiful here. It's so quiet. The only sound is sounds of quail and birds. So the other night, after Samir and I went on a walk through Portland, I decided to make dinner. And so we went and bought some steaks and we went back to our apartment, which is still empty because we were traveling through Southeast Asia for about 4 or 5 months. And all of our stuff is actually here in Joshua Tree. Like all of the magical artifacts and different tools that we've collected along our journey are all here. And when we were in the apartment, we felt that we really wanted those things there, that it was time to transform that environment entirely. And when we felt that, this rush of excitement came up. So we booked the first flight out of Portland and we flew here yesterday, which was interesting considering that my last video is talking about exactly this. I feel it's perfect that life brought me here back to the desert to really be able to share with you what the experience is of falling into this energy that I've been discussing. When I first came to the desert, we lived here. We actually left here and moved out of here 1 year ago, or 1 year and 1 week ago. We lived in Joshua Tree for about 6 months. Which before that I lived in Los Angeles for nearly 11 years. And it's like I felt like that energy of the city, the hustle and bustle, all of that, it just permeated me so much that I was holding this like literal tension, anxiety in my body. Like everything that I did or everything I felt was just riddled with this anxiety. And I'll never forget that first night here. The sun went down and we were in the house and there was not a single sound. And like how powerful of a moment that is when you reconnect back into like that voice of the silence. Even being here again from Portland, it's like I feel it's so strong. The desert completely stripped me of what was left of my identity, like what I was hanging on to, who I thought I was supposed to be, what I'd set out to be and was attached to. I actually had this dream of being a filmmaker. And that dream brought me out of Utah and to Los Angeles. But after nearly a decade in the film industry, I realized, I was not realizing it. I was holding it back from myself because of what it would mean. But I knew that's not what I actually wanted to do with my life. I realized that it wasn't very important in the long run, and that I could really contribute my energies in a much more beautiful way, a much more powerful and much more lasting way down another path. And so I left that behind to come here and let it all fall away. And in the time that we were here, we actually lived in the desert for a significant amount of time. We had a house, but we would choose to go and just live in the desert by ourselves for sometimes weeks at a time. And I remember having this fear of the desert, fear of the heat, fear of the creatures, fear of what I didn't understand about it. But all these things just kept dropping away. And all these fears of society just kept dropping away. Until I realized that none of that is actually the truth of our reality. Not even in the least bit. The truth of this reality in this earth is that it's heaven all the time. And that is the last thing that our society wants you to feel or connect into. Because what's actually remaining, or what's waiting for you on the other side of all of those fears, and on the other side of all of your doubt and thought patterns, is just this silence. This perfect, extraordinary peace. This is the energy of the new earth that I keep talking about. Gaia Ladrieh. It's a return to honoring the earth as our heaven. The mother who birthed us, that gave us this extraordinary opportunity to be here. But we become so fearful of this experience, we've tried to control it. We've tried to control it with structures of time, with schedules, with income, with all these things, without realizing that this all started in the first place because of a fear of the unknown. See, when man first started to cultivate crops, and cities were first established around this, there became a fear in this stability. The stability seemed like the better option. You wouldn't have to trust in the unknown as much. You wouldn't have to, you could guarantee you'd have something to eat, but the fact is that the earth is always changing. And when you don't adapt to this flow constantly and just give yourself to it, she'll try to teach you a different lesson. And so these agriculturists, these first farmers, would experience seasons of bad harvest, which led to all kinds of rituals and rites in order to propitiate the gods, to give them a full harvest and everything that they wanted. But all they really wanted was not to fear the unknown anymore. And this fear became so intensified that eventually They believe that this life and this reality was the enemy instead of heaven. Which is not true in the least. We're already in heaven. And all we really have to do at this point in time is take control of these mind patterns by not identifying with them and falling back in line with the natural rhythms and the natural spirit of the earth. And there's nothing more beautiful than that that I have found anywhere. That rhythm is what led me to discover that this world is entirely magic. In every way. I have been everywhere on this planet. And this is the truth I find everywhere I go. But there's the illusion that I also find everywhere I go. That illusion that this is too dangerous and that we need these structures in place in order to survive. But that's not true at all, is it? Now, in my last few videos, I've challenged you to get in touch with that true essence of who you actually are and what you're actually feeling. To let that fire ignite within you and to follow it wherever it took you. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if many of you didn't follow it very far. Maybe some of you, told you to change where you're at, go to an entire city entirely, to go thousands of miles away into the misty unknown. And many of you probably didn't follow it this far. But that's okay, because you're tuned in right now and you're expanding your experience. But there's also another experience for those who did. Because just as you come to the edge of your experience, which is where that momentum will always carry you. Sorry about that. It will always carry you to the edge of your experience. And that's why it's so scary, because it goes into that unknown. That unknown that we've been conditioned to fear, instead of trust and know that that unknown is where magic exists. Absolutely. These are my favorite. I love these. Most beautiful cactus out here. When they catch the light, they just glow like a heavenly being. So now, for those of you that did follow it to the edge of your experience, it took you to the edge of a cliff. Now, this is where fear is likely to set in, is at this edge. Because you're shifting the dimensional reality of your existence. You're going into an entire different octave of reality here. So just like in musical notes, right? We have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. That T exactly is where the wall exists between the octaves. And it's one of the most disharmonic frequencies until it's completed again by do. But usually, when following this motion, we will take it all the way to the edge of our experience, to that tone, to T. And in this energy, we're going to experience a turmoil. We're going to experience a shaking of the energies. It's going to shake loose thought patterns and fears and emotions and past stories and past traumas and all of these things. Now, we fear that in this moment, that if we go and take one more step, what we're going to step into is a repetition of these cycles. And so that's usually where we retreat and run back to what we know, in which we actually continue and repeat those cycles from here. But what's really happening is your emotion, which is carrying you to that next octave of existence and to that next octave of consciousness, is shaking these emotions from out of you. And when it shakes them from out of you, it is inviting you to leave behind those energies that are not in harmony with your experience in this new octave of existence. To leave them behind entirely. And when you leave these energies behind, they're no longer part of your pattern. And you step into this new world. The world as it actually is. Where you are the magician who creates the events rather than the victim who is subject to them. If you want to change anything in your life, there is a tried and true magic formula to this. You create an event. You then come into contact with the frequency in which you want to travel. You hold that frequency within your mind's eye, and you just hold that frequency and fall in line with your natural movements, which will carry you there. It has nothing to do with what you think you have to do to get there, what work you have to get done, etc. All you have to do is follow your natural guidance, your natural impulse, and your natural response. So when you feel to sit, and just catch your breath. You can sit and catch your breath and enjoy the view. And when you feel to get up and move and continue, you get up and continue and do those actions that you feel inspired to do. That's it. And what Magick teaches us, and Magick training, is how to come into contact with this original electric pulse. Which is the most simple thing in the world. But because our minds have made it so complex, Magick supplies a labyrinth, which is a trap for the mind. It supplies a path and a container in which the mind cannot escape. And this is our magic circle. The mind cannot go beyond the bounds set up by Magick, because Magick is this means in which we use the mind in all of its aspects, but we make the mind subservient. And this is known as Cherubim's flaming sword. And my book Excalibur is exactly this: a trap for the mind in which it can't escape, that you can discover your soul. Because when the mind comes into balance, the soul moves completely uninhibited. And you become you. Exactly as you were created to be. With the personality you were meant to have. With the gifts you were destined to share and transmit into the world. And as you transmit these gifts into the world, it creates a vortex of energy around you. This momentum creates an electromagnetic field, which then draws to you everything you desire. Wow, it's so beautiful here. Takes my breath away. That and the hill I just climbed. So, this is the reason that I offer Magick training, which is not what you think it's going to be. Sure, you're going to learn the information and the knowledge of the occult arts, but it's going to be much more than that. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on you and your energy and put it into action in the world. Practical magic, in which you learn the formula which you are currently using to operate and create your current reality. And we will get you in touch with the next octave of your existence and reality that you wish to create. And I personally am with you along this journey and give you instructions and challenges that you will go beyond where you are now and come into line only with who you've always been. Because when you come into contact with this true self, the truth of who you are, that you are the power, all the power that ever was or will be, and that you are a center of expression of this power at all times, magic will carry you beyond the confines of the system. You will no longer depend upon it for your survival. You will no longer depend upon it to create your dreams and what you actually want in this life. It'll become unimportant to you. You'll stop going to your job because you realize it's unimportant. You're going to stop caring about what your governments and politicians are doing because you're going to realize that it doesn't matter. And it never has. There have always been politicians fighting over seats, and the earth has always remained in her purity. And this is going to be the new revolution, the rise of Gaia Ladrieh, is that it's going to grow up out of this system in which the old system is literally left behind, because it has nothing to do with the truth of reality. And so we won't need to fight a war. We won't need to protest. We're just going to fall in line and in sync with ourselves and create the new world by our magic art. And I hope that you feel how powerfully true this is, because you are one of the ones that is going to create this world. And wherever you are right now, it is only a passing image, just as a train station may be where you're at, but it's nothing to do with where you're going.